Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Calzare. I've been playing Centurion ever since he came out as DLC, and this is my reworked Centurion guide. Before the video starts, I just want to give a quick shout out to Dam M Lock, Delta Hotel 12, and Gordon Milk for helping me out with this video. Their social media links will be in the description down below. This video has timestamps up on the screen or in the description, so if you want to skip to a certain part of the video, you are free to do so. Now, let's get right into the video. So, the Centurion is a very good character in duels. His high stamina pool allows him to keep the pressure going, and he can punish the opponent for trying to parry his heavies because they are variably timed. Centurion has very good neutral pressure with his kick mix-up, and he has very good chain pressure with his feintable jab. His only drawbacks are that he has a very low health pool, so you're going to have to manage your health with the Centurion, and he does not have a dodge attack to punish bashes. So let's talk about Centurion's rework changes. The first thing that was changed is that he can now target swap his zones. He can now feint his zone after the first hit and also after the second hit of the zone. Centurion can feint his chain heavy after the unblockable portion now, and he can also do a soft feint into a guard break right after the unblockable as well. We know that Centurion can do a jab after his heavy, but now after the rework, Centurion can do a jab after his light as well, and as you've seen, he can feint his jab. So if we do the feint, we can feint it into a guard break, for example. Centurion now has the ability to target swap his jab after it is initiated. Centurion's charged jab now has better tracking, and it has uninterruptible stance right before it hits. Centurion's chain lights are now faster, so this first chain light is faster, and the second chain light is also faster, so you can mix up your opponent better. After a parry counter, Centurion can now get a fully charged jab, guaranteeing him an Eagle Stalin whenever you have a wall nearby. The speed of Centurion's kick has been increased by 100 milliseconds, and its orange effect has been reduced, making your kick less reactable. The speed of Centurion's forward walk has been increased, so he can get close to the opponent faster, and the distance of his forward dodge has also increased, allowing you to go towards your opponent faster. The speed and range of Centurion's forward dodge heavies has also increased, allowing you to punish opponents that are further away from you. The range of Centurion's zone has been increased, the range of his light has been increased, the range of his heavy has also been increased, and the tracking of his jab has also been increased. You can no longer get a wall splat into a fully charged heavy, into a fully charged jab, because it can be dodged by the opponent. Centurion can now feint his heavy openers faster. He does not have to charge them and then feint them anymore. So let's start with Centurion's max punishes. On a heavy parry, you get a parry counter into a light for 17 damage. On a light parry, you can get a fully charged heavy for 30 damage. If there is a wall nearby, you can get a parry into a parry counter, into a fully charged jab, into an Eagle Stalin for 42 damage. When you're out of stamina and you get a light parry, you could get a light for 15 damage. On a guard break, you can get a heavy for 25 damage. And on a out of stamina guard break, you could get a light for 15 damage. On a wall throw, you can get 2 Lion's Roar lights into a fully charged heavy for 30 damage. On a wall throw, when you're out of stamina, you can get a heavy for 25 damage. When you guard break an out of stamina opponent, you can get 2 Lion's Roar into a Eagle Stalin for 42 damage. When you parry somebody who's out of stamina, you parry, unlock, relock, do a heavy into a fully charged jab into a Eagle Stalin for 67 damage. And you have to relock right after you parry, because if you don't, you're only going to be able to get an Eagle Stalin and not a heavy into a fully charged jab. If this punish is too difficult, you can also get a zone feinted into a Eagle Stalin, but be careful because it's unsafe. If these punishes are still too hard for you, you could also just get an Eagle Stalin after a parry for 42 damage. If the opponent is out of lock and you hit him with a heavy, you can get another heavy for 50 damage. Now, if your opponent is out of lock and out of stamina, you can get a heavy into a jab into a light for 65 damage. Or you could get a forward dodge heavy into a jab into a light for 40 damage. And finally, on a kick, you get a zone attack for 17 damage. So let's talk about Centurion's offense, and the first thing we're going to talk about is Centurion's delayed attacks. After a light opener, Centurion cannot delay his other side attacks if he hits the opponent, but if he misses the light, then he can delay his attacks. For Centurion's heavy opener, however, it's the contrary. If Centurion hits an opponent with his heavy opener or the heavy opener is blocked, he can delay his second chain heavy. But if he misses the heavy opener, he cannot delay his second chain heavy. So let's talk about delaying jabs. Centurion cannot delay his jabs after a light opener or after a uncharged heavy opener or combo heavy. He can only delay them after a fully charged heavy opener or a fully charged combo heavy. So let's talk about Centurion's neutral kick mix-up. So if the opponent dodges as soon as he sees movement, you go for a neutral guard break. If the opponent is stoic and doesn't move, you hit him with a raw kick. If your opponent tries to dodge your kick, you could dodge towards him, and right after your dodge ends, you can go for a guard break to punish him. Here's a quick option select with Centurion's kick. If you're fighting an opponent that does not have a dodge attack, and you do your zone input after a kick and it hits, you get the zone, of course, and if the kick misses, you get the heavy. So if the opponent tries to dodge and then guard break you, you get the heavy. And the reason why this is an option select is because you're covering two options with the same input. So let's talk about Centurion's heavy pressure. If the opponent doesn't try to parry you, you go for your heavy from any side and then go into your chain pressure. If your opponent tries to parry your heavy, you can go for a fully charged heavy, and if the opponent tries to parry you, you're going to get 30 damage. Another thing that you could do is that you could partially charge your heavies. In order to do that, you have to charge your heavy and then release it right before the heavy would become charged to throw off your opponent. And you can also soft feint the heavy into a guard break if the opponent tries to parry you. To do this, press guard break after you press on your heavy button to do a soft feint. You can also feint your heavy into another side light if the opponent tries to parry you. Now, smart opponents are going to try to dodge instead of parry your heavies. So if that happens, you could do your heavy soft feinted into a guard break again, but characters with dodge attacks can counter this. And so if you're fighting a character with a dodge attack, it's better to feint your heavy into a parry. If you're fighting a character with a dodging bash attack like the Conqueror, you have to feint the heavy into a top light. Now, one thing that's worth noting is that Centurion's heavies have really good recovery, so if you let your heavy go, you could get a parry on an opponent who tries to dodge and do his dodge attack late. Now, Centurion's chain heavies have the same mix-ups as his heavy openers, except you can feint them after they become unblockable, and you can only partially charge them before they become unblockable. Now, let's talk about Centurion's jab mix-up. If the opponent is stoic, you do an uncharged jab. If the opponent tries to dodge your jab, you charge it by holding guard break after you do your attack. If your opponent tries to dodge or he tries to dodge and roll out of your jab mix-up, you feint it into a guard break. Now, you won't be able to do this against characters with dodge attacks. If you're fighting a character with a dodge attack, instead of feinting into a guard break, you feint the jab and then you parry the opponent when he does his dodge attack. So when you're fighting a character with side dodge bashes like the Conqueror, he can counter your jab, your charge jab, and your jab feint into a guard break with the same timing. So what you have to do in this case is you have to do a jab feint into a top light. It's also worth noting that Centurion can feint his jab earlier or later based on how you do it. So if you tap the guard break button and you press cancel right after, you can feint the jab really quick, but if you hold the guard break button, you can feint the jab a little bit later. And this is super useful against opponents who dodge at the last second. So if you're fighting an opponent, try to do the feint after you tap the guard break button and you do it really early. And if you see that it doesn't work, then you hold it and then you feint a little bit later so you can try to catch the opponent. If you're mixing up your jab with the Centurion, one really useful thing you can do is you can feint your jab into another side light or heavy, or you could do your jab, get your light, and then do a light in another direction or a heavy in another direction, and then go for your jab mix-up. You have to mix up your jab and not always go for the jab, sometimes go for another side attack. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Centurion's defense. And the first thing we're going to be talking about when we talk about Centurion's defense is going to be his option selects. So if you do a zone attack on light timing on an opponent's light, and he does it, you get a parry, even though you did the zone input. And if you do a zone on light timing on an opponent who does a heavy feinted into a guard break, you'll get the zone. So you cover two options with one input, but you have to be careful. Centurion zone is pretty slow, so if the opponent lets his heavy go, you're most likely going to eat it. Now here's another option select with Centurion. If you do a heavy on light timing and you cancel right after and the opponent does a light, you get the parry. If the opponent does a heavy and he lets it go, you feint, so you only take the chip damage. And if he does a heavy and he cancels into a guard break, you get the counter guard break. So with this option select, you're going to be covering three options with the same input. If you're fighting characters with bashes like the Gladiator, for example, you're not really going to be able to do a dodge into a dodge attack. So in that case, what you want to do is you want to interrupt the Gladiator with your light because it's quite fast. Now, another thing that's worth noting is that Centurion's guard never switches no matter where you dodge. So if I dodge the right, if I dodge forward, or if I dodge backwards, my guard still stays on the left side. So how do you use this in a fight? Well, if I know that the Lawbringer is going to try to do his zone when I dodge towards him, I put my guard to the left and I dodge towards him, and his zone just hits me and I only eat the chip. As you can see, because my guard does not change sides when I dodge forward. So let's talk about whiff punishing with the Centurion. A lot of characters, like the Highlander, whiff their attack on purpose. Highlander whiffs his light to access his offensive stance, and if he sees that you're going to be dodging towards him, he does his heavy to punish you for trying to get close to him. If you have an opponent who tries to whiff light and do an uninterruptible attack, you can punish them with your kick. Since the kick is an unblockable bash, it's going to go right through uninterruptible armor, and you're going to be able to get your punish on an opponent who tries to whiff their lights. Another whiff punish that you can use if the opponent does not have an uninterruptible attack follow-up is the forward dodge into a heavy. This whiff punish does a little bit more damage. You can also use this attack to escape pressure. For example, when the Aramusha does his pressure, you can use this to trade blows with him, but don't use it too often to trade blows because the Centurion does not have that much health to trade. Okay, so let's talk about Centurion's feats. So for tier 1, if you plan on killing minions, in the minion, go for body count. It's going to give you 2 health and 2 stamina every time you kill a minion, and if you don't plan on killing minions, pick Bounty Hunter. It's going to give you 25 health and full stamina every time you kill another player. If you plan for your tier 2 feat to play with teammates and cooperate, use Inspire. For 20 seconds, you and your allies are going to have 20% more damage if they're in a 10-meter radius. If you plan on playing alone for your tier 2 feat, I suggest you pick Haymaker. All your punches, kicks, and throws will deal 5 damage. For your tier 3 feat, always pick Second Wind. It gives you 50 health every time you use it, and it removes any bleed or fire damage. This is really useful because it increases your survivability by a lot with the Centurion. For your tier 4 feat, however, use Phalanx. It's going to give you and your teammates a 100 health shield, and you're going to be able to use it whenever you get a call out from your teammates. Whenever they're about to die, you're going to be able to save them by using this tier 4. Okay, so let's talk about Centurion's perks. So I'm going to name them in order of importance and explain why you should pick them. So first perk that you should pick would be Devourer. Now this perk heals an extra 15 HP every time you kill someone with an execution. It's really useful for Centurion because it makes him have increased survivability. The second perk that you should get is Galestorm. Now upon hero kill you gain a 20% boost to movement speed for 10 seconds. So you could switch in between ganking situations. You could go to points faster in Dominion or Breach, and you could assist your teammates better with this perk. Now for your third perk, you have a choice between Headhunter and Endurance. If you like to kill minions and you don't want to run out of stamina, go for Endurance. If you feel confident in your stamina management, go for Headhunter. Because Endurance, you gain a 3% stamina cost reduction every time you earn a Renon. So if you don't really feel confident in your stamina management, pick Endurance, and if you do, pick Headhunter. Every time you execute a hero, you get your maximum health is increased by 4. You don't get any HP, but your health is increased. Now, a really good execution that you can pair with these perks is the LAKEY execution. This execution goes really well with Devourer and Headhunter because it kills extremely quickly, allowing you to get your health bonuses early without being interrupted. The opponent is going to have a really hard time interrupting your execution. Okay, so here are some button maps that are going to make your game a little bit easier. So when you're in the Advanced Controls section of the Options menu, go to your Cancel Heavy Attack / Ladder Slide button and click on it and switch it to the left analog stick. Then go to Guard Break and Executions and switch that to your right analog stick. Then go to Dodge / Ledge Drop and switch that to your X button. This configuration will make your experience with Centurion much better. It's going to make your inputs much faster because you're not going to have to use a lot of travel time between each button press. So now is the end of the video. I just want to say it's been a really cool project to do, and if you like the video, please give it a like. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And for the time being, I'm going to be out, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.